Wondering what version of Excel can you use for this class? Desktop versions are preferred over Excel for the web. I know a lot of you have Excel for the web and you've got different versions, but you really need to make sure that you're using the desktop version for this class. There's a lot of important features that are not found on Excel for the web that are in the desktop versions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of this screencast. Office 365 is preferred for this course. Excel 2024 standalone version, you can get away with using that, so that'll most likely work fine for this course, either on a Windows or Mac. I would just be sure to test a few functions. These are specifically array functions here, so maybe just type into Excel, into a cell equals take and see if it's recognizing that, or text split and put a parentheses, just to make sure that you can use that. If those two functions are showing up, then you can probably use Excel 2024. The previous standalone versions, Excel 2021, Excel 2019, are not going to work for this course. They do not have all of the new dynamic array formulas that we're going to be using in this course. Some of you might be wondering if there's a difference between Windows or Mac versions. For this course, you can use either Windows or Mac versions. There are slight variations in some of the tools, and I will try to point those out where there are differences. I am doing everything on a Windows machine, and so if you do have a Mac, the shortcut keys that I'm going to be using are a little bit different from Windows. I'll try to point these out in spots, but also there is a document called Excel Shortcuts on the course website. And this is actually taken from exceljet.net, and this has a lot of important shortcut key combinations that are equivalent to what I do on a Windows machine. So be sure to get used to these Excel shortcuts if you have a Mac. Finally, if you do have a Mac and you're interested in learning Visual Basic for Applications, or VBA, then you're not going to be able to use a Mac. There are major VBA limitations on a Mac. So if you're ever interested in programming with VBA, you might think about transitioning to the Windows version of Excel. So I wanted to quickly just go through the difference between what's called a perpetual license with Excel 2024. These are one-time purchases. You purchase Excel 2024, one-time fee. It's a perpetual license. You own that forever. I highly recommend not doing this. I highly recommend purchasing Office 365, which is a subscription-based license, so you pay a certain fee per month, because this will occasionally update. Office 365 is a living software program, so occasionally get updates from the internet, new functions, new functionalities, changes, and maybe they fix some bugs. But a perpetual license will never get updates. And so I would highly recommend getting this subscription-based license, Office 365, rather than purchasing a one-time perpetual license. Now I know some of you are wondering about Excel for the web. So you actually open this up in a web browser. It's a lot less expensive than Office 365, but there are some minor shortcomings. It's cloud-based, which means it requires the internet. It's great for real-time collaborations. It's similar to Google Sheets. So if you're just using it for real-time collaborations, it's going to be fine, but there are minor limitations specifically for this course. My general impressions, I've played around with Excel for the web a little bit. Most tools and functions are there. Sometimes it's hard to find if you're used to the desktop version of Excel. It's much slower. The conditional formatting is quite limited. I was playing around with some things and it actually crashed. I just trying to do some real basic conditional formatting. There's limited plotting capabilities, and so I would recommend getting the desktop version. In fact, you're not going to be able to complete this course with Excel for the web. All right, I'm over here in Excel, and I just wanted to give you kind of an overview and point out some basic features of Excel. I'm sure many of you have opened up Excel and done some things with this application. We've got this ribbon up here. So you've got all these different groups on this ribbon. You've got a bunch of tabs. So we have the Home tab, Insert tab, and so on. And we'll get to all these in due time. Let's go to the Home tab here. Each tab is sorted into groups. So we have the alignment group, the number group, the styles group, and so on. In each group, you have these command buttons. So here we have the insert command button, the fill command button over here, and so on. I did want to point out real quick that in this course, my ribbon might look a little bit different than yours. I'm recording these on a Microsoft Surface device. If you've got a much larger monitor, then some of these command buttons are actually going to be expanded. For example, if I go to the data tab here, you see the data validation is just this little button. But if I go over onto my external monitor, we see that that data validation is expanded now and it says data validation. So depending upon what screen you're looking at, it's going to look different from others. And some of these command buttons and groups have been expanded. So keep that in mind when you're working in Excel. By the way, on a Mac, your ribbon's going to look very similar. There might be slight differences between a Windows version. I wanted to show you first how we can zoom in. So I'm going to click View and I'm going to go to Zoom and I'm just going to select 200%. That makes it nice and big. So most of the screencasts that I record, I'm going to record at 200% zoom level. So the Excel spreadsheet is separated into all of these cells, and using the left and right and up and down arrows, I can kind of toggle and go back and forth. You can put in items, so I can just put in something like a string or text. You can put in numbers. So let's just put a number. You can do calculations which start with a equal sign, 1 plus 3, and we'll get to all this in due time, and that equals 4. So you can do a lot in these cells of the spreadsheet. The file that I'm working in is known as a workbook. Down here we have different sheets. So sheet 1, and you can always add a new sheet here, and I'll show you that in subsequent screencasts. Let's go back to the Home tab here, and let me show you how we can use a couple of these command buttons to do different things. So I've got cell B3, that's called cell B3 selected, and here in the alignment I can click on Align Right, I can center, and you can change different things like the formatting, the font color, and so on. If we go up to the top here, you see that there's this save and autosave. There's sort of this disk icon. This is called the Quick Access Toolbar. You can undo things and redo them with these two arrows. There's this drop-down menu here, which allows us to customize the Quick Access Toolbar, and I'll show you how to do this in a future screencast. But one thing I want to show you is this autosave. If you're saving to OneDrive or SharePoint, then you can enable autosave. So it's automatically saving this file as I make changes, and it's saving it to the cloud. It's also saving it to my hard drive. So you might look into enabling OneDrive. Let me show you a few more things. If we go all the way here to the right and you click on this little down arrow, we can hide the Quick Access Toolbar. So you see that that has been hidden. And let's go back here and show the Quick Access Toolbar. We can also collapse the ribbon. So if you just do Show Tabs Only, it collapses all of those icons in the ribbon. You can always bring it back by selecting a tab, for example, Data. And if you click down here, it goes away. But if you want to put it back for good, I tend to like it always showing. So always show ribbon. This bar right here is called the formula bar. So let's go ahead and click down here into the formula that I created. This is called the formula bar. It shows the formula of the current cell that's selected. You can either double click in the cell for a calculation, or you can go to that cell and go up to the formula bar, and that's where you can edit or enter formulas. Let's go ahead and just put in a couple numbers here, 1, 2, 3 in 3 different cells. And let's highlight, so you can left click and drag. That's how you can highlight cells. We can go down here to the status bar. The status bar is the lower bar down here. And if you go down to the right, it gives us the average, the count, and the sum of the currently selected cells. So we have an average of 2, we have 3 of those, and they sum to 6. There's a difference between left clicking, so left mouse clicking selects a cell, holding down the left mouse button and dragging, that makes a selection as I showed you earlier. And then we can right click, and that brings up this context sensitive menu. It's got a bunch of different options available, and many of you have experienced these types of menus in other applications. So we can cut easily, we can copy, we can go up here to this other menu and we can format cells easily without going to the ribbon. So this is really nice when we're formatting cells or copying and pasting. So that's about all I wanted to show you in this introductory screencast. And in subsequent screencasts, I'll be showing you a lot more of the nuts and bolts of Excel.